We must move globally to get back on offense in the war on terror. This means first recognizing and admitting the size and scope of the threat we face. Al-Qaeda is not diminished, nor is the tide of war receding. Wishing doesn't make it so. Our president must understand we are at war and that we must do what it takes for as long as it takes to win.
America is at war, make no bones about it. We are bombing targets of the enemy, one that is determined to kill us. They are not the only ones, as we have discovered in recent months and even days. Other groups are following suit. And this means the president must be able to take action as he sees fit, often without the wrangling and whining of those who do not understand the need for action. This sounds like a battle plan against ISIS. Indeed, but it's nothing new or shocking. George Bush faced a similar concept during his years in power, and Vice President Dick Cheney found room to use what is loosely called the Cheney pre-emptive war doctrine. It has returned to the forefront, and consideration as to whether it just may be the right thing to do. Let's welcome back to MidPoint, Professor of Public Policy, Politics, and International Affairs at Georgetown University, a member of George W. Bush Sr.'s staff as Deputy Assistant and veteran Republican strategist, Bradley Blakeman. Bradley, thanks so much for being with us again today.
My pleasure.
Bradley, let me first go ahead and read something for the folks. They'll see this here. I want you to hear it. But this is the comment of Tim Kaine, the Democratic senator out of Virginia, when he recently took and commented on the Cheney doctrine. Quote, Congress has sort of allowed the Cheney preemptive war doctrine to exist by another name. In this instance, they allowed the president to say, ISIL is the bad guys, and I can go after them even though there has been testimony that they pose no imminent threat of attack on the United States. If the president just gets to do this without Congress, then we will be embracing the Cheney preemptive war doctrine, which I think is just brutally wrong. I would guess that to some people the phrase brutally wrong strikes a chord here, because in this instance, in some instances, understanding that there are legalities involved here, but don't you have to act sometimes without all the wrangling that goes on?
The president needs to act because he's charged with preserving and protecting the homeland. The president has intelligence that the entire Congress doesn't have. And do we let a bank robber rob a bank and then go after the bank robber, or do we try and prevent the bank robbery? Same thing with terrorism. Do we try and prevent a terrorist attack, or do we just respond to it when it occurs? The terrorist enemy we face today is not a nation state yet. They are a group of people who are in nations, but seeking to control them, but they don't fight in uniform. They don't fight pursuant to convention. So it's absolutely incumbent upon the president, if he has knowledge and if he believes that there's an imminent attack or a threat against America, he must preemptively strike and not wait for us to be attacked.
Would you not agree, though, and again playing the other side of this argument, that there is a legality issue that is involved here, because what the president apparently to some is doing is using the authorizations by Congress that came in 2001 and 2002, and many say you still legally must go talk to the Congress. So that is still in the mix, correct?
Well, under the current state of law, the president does have the authority to act and then report to Congress, which he has done. If the Congress is not happy with the law, then they need to change the law. The fact is, today, Congress is nowhere to be found in Washington. And in fact, if anything, they gave a waiver to the president because they haven't returned and acted against his actions.
Let me go ahead and bring in next. I want to have another side of this as well and join us on the conversation. He is former Deputy Assistant to Vice President Dick Cheney for National Security Affairs and the CEO of D.C. International Advisory, Stephen Yates. Stephen, you join us now. Thanks for being with us.
Happy to be with you.
Stephen, let's look at this from the legal position, because Bradley Blakeman and we have just been talking about this from the top. We talked about what Representative Tim Kaine is talking about as well, Senator Tim Kaine, I should say, with regard to his fear that this is the Cheney preemptive doctrine once again come to boost in Washington. Is it not fair to say, in your opinion on this, that quite frankly, you've got to do this sometimes, even though there may be a legal issue here? That's tough to say, but sometimes the president does need to act before having to deal with all the extra discussions, if you will.
Right. I don't think it's necessarily fair. I think it's pretty partisan, actually, for the senator to call this the Cheney preemptive war doctrine. The notion of preemption has been out there for millennia. And so even in the United States, we have faced debates about at what point it's proper for us to take action. I think after 9/11, most of the country was unified behind the notion that we shouldn't wait for a catastrophic attack that was brought basically by a relatively small number of people with low technology. and certainly within the reach of the many groups that have aggregated in Syria. And really, I think we have a debate that, to an extent, is dancing on the head of a pin. The president has attacked more than just IS, ISIS, ISIL, whatever they want to call themselves. He's gone after other groups for which there are intelligence reports suggesting they were primed to attack our homeland. So I think the majority of American people aren't much interested in this senatorial debate. They want this problem taken care of before it comes to our shores.
Stephen, I'll bring this to you first. Bradley, listen up as well, because I'm going to come to you on this, but this is part of what Tim Kaine pointed out here. He talked about, again, in the statement, that they pose no imminent threat of attack on the United States. Again, Stephen, to you first. What do you need? I mean, very honestly, what more do you need other than the beheading of American journalists and what has happened and the finding of terrorists that basically are living within our midst? And we're not trying to fearmonger here. We're talking about actual reality, are we not?
Very true. And I think this really is the divide about whether you look at counterterrorism from a law enforcement point of view or, as I see it, as an Islamist war declared on us. When you look at these people as enemy combatants and they declare that they have an intent to attack us, they demonstrate that they have the means to take action. I don't think that it's really necessary in times of war to wait for them to actually execute. And in fact, I think if we're going to deter at any point these kinds of groups that have spread across a wider geography under President Obama than President Bush faced, if we're ever going to deter them, we have to have a demonstrated impact on them before they can mobilize.
Bradley, is that maybe part of the problem here, that terrorists, people who want to be our enemies, they know that many times when they come at the United States that there is going to be a discussion and another discussion and a debate and a vote and a discussion and a debate. So they know that they can drag this out and they can get things started, and there really won't be a whole lot of prices to pay until much later on.
Absolutely. They use our democracy as a tool against us. They don't fight pursuant to international law, norms, decency, rule of law. So, yeah, in some instances, our democracy is an enabler for them, and that's why the president needs to be nimble enough to act on his own authority with the intelligence that he have. And I have a message for Senator Kaine. Put up or shut up. You're a Democratic senator. If you feel the president has exceeded his authority, then try and do something about it. But don't merely sit on the sidelines and snipe. The fact is that the president says that there was an imminent attack. We have to take him at his word. And certainly we know that what ISIS has done, we've seen it play out right before our very eyes in beheading Americans, which is an act of war. So I would tell the senator, talk is cheap. If you feel the president has violated the law, then it's incumbent upon you to do something about it.
Stephen, to you, is that part of the biggest problem here, is that we have a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks sitting in here and people who decide what they want, when they want, but it's way too late? You've got to get in the game way before it starts.
I agree completely, but I also think that the president really should more honestly and clearly consult with Congress on this. I think that a majority in Congress, if properly consulted, will agree that we face a growing danger, and they don't want to sit back and just wait to be attacked. And so I think that if the president were really in the game himself on this, he should be consulting with his colleagues in the Senate. But I completely agree with Brad that it doesn't help anyone for a Democrat senator from Virginia to stand up and just take pot shots at both Dick Cheney and the administration. He should live up to his own oath of office.
Steve, about 20 seconds left. I'll give you the first shot at this. Did Dick Cheney have it right all along?
Well, I have to say he did, but I think a lot of us were right there with him.
And when he did make his decisions and he pushed it forward, was everybody right behind him from the very first moment and said, absolutely, we back you, it's the correct thing to do?
You know, post 9/11, Brad and I both lived through this. When the White House was evacuating, we took that hit. It changed our lives. It changed the way we looked at the world. We had a very deep seriousness of purpose. We were unified behind the notion that we needed to take on these threats overseas before they came again to us.
Bradley, last shot to you, 20 seconds. Dick Cheney have it right all along?
President Bush and Dick Cheney had it right because they saw the world as it was, not the world they wished it to be.
And sometimes the world they wish it to be is a little bit too cloudy and people can't see through a lot of the realities of what life is. Agreed with you both. Stephen Yates, Bradley Blakeman, we thank you so much for your time and so much for your comments as well. We'll look forward to talking to you both again.
Thank you.
All right, later on this hour, the NCAA steps back completely from doing anything about domestic abuse. And we step into the latest on the search for a cop killer in the Northeast. After the break, political analyst Dick Morris takes on the Obama administration and immigration in Dick Morris's new book, Power Grab. It's coming up right here on MidPoint, where we question everything.